It's an outrage. They're making so much money off this for-profit company that it should be shut down. And we as a community, we welcome these kids in our schools, in our homes, our communities. We love these kids. They look like us. They're coming from places like us. So it's a shame that this community has to suffer and see this center here because we don't want it.
And are family members here in the community ready to accept them?
Yes.
And tell me what the delay is in being able to match a child who's detained with a sponsor who's in the community.
So the center, they're taking a long time to just even connect with the family members that want them. They're putting delays. They're asking social security numbers from all the people and their family members, fingerprints. It's all being delayed, and then they find any excuse to delay the reunification process. So we have people from Homestead and just outside the cities that have come and want to go inside and meet with their child, and they tell them, oh, visiting hours, did you even get clearance and all of this? So they make the process harder because you're making more than $750 a day to keep a child in there. So we really need to reunite them, get this place shut down, make sure there's transparency with everything, and that's what we're asking all candidates and all Congress members to really promise and make sure that this center is going to be shut down. And if it's shut down in Homestead, it won't appear in any other city, to make sure that there's policy in place that this isn't going to occur anywhere else. And we have teachers from the community that do have children that have been from these centers, and now if you would like to.
Yeah, so it not only is the process for unification a lot more harder for the family here, but we also need capacity for, once the child is reunited with the family, we need quality education. We need the counties to accept the children that are coming out of the center into the school and provide a quality education. We are a community organization that is providing English classes for the community that has been coming out of the detention center, but we do not have capacity to have all of the children in our center. So we need officials to push policy for bettering the education system, to actually accept and not push back the children that are coming out of the center, for them to have a better quality of life, not just, especially after all the trauma that they have come into the U.S.
Just want to add one more thing, Beto. It is really important that the Flores Agreement is respected and that these kids get out of there as soon as possible. They hold mostly 13 to 17-year-olds in the center, and the 17-year-olds, on the day of their birthday, they put them on a van in shackles and drive them over to the Chrome Detention Center nearby. And from there, they start deportation proceedings on these kids. It is that ruthless. On the day of their birthday, they send them to the adult detention center.
When they turn 17 or when they turn 18? When they turn 18.
The 17-year-olds are being held in that tent over there, the white tent. 13 to 16-year-olds are here.
Beto, what do you have to say to all this that you're hearing?
I want to ask a couple more questions before I speak and say anything. I asked about families who are in the community. What about families who aren't in Miami or Homestead or the state of Florida? Are there families, California, Texas, other places who are having a hard time getting here to be with their kids?
Yes, definitely. And right now the biggest problem is that they're sending the information with DHS. So if a family member themselves is documented in there, if someone undocumented in their community, it's that threat that they're composing. Like I said, they always have barriers for these children to be released. So the families have been able to come down and fly down here. But when the social workers and just the company themselves start putting rules and not following OR procedures or HHS procedures, that's when everything goes down.
Well, I think one of the things we're asking for, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the Office of Refugee Resettlement stop sharing information about a sponsor for these kids with ICE.
Yes.
Because that then compromises the sponsor family. As you said, if it's a mixed immigration household, and everyone in the household has to get fingerprinted or share social security information, they may not come forward if that means a deportation of a member of their household, which leaves these kids languishing here.
And then here in Miami, we just had the threat of ICE raids. So ICE raids is very difficult in our community. People did not want to go to worship centers, to the markets, or just leave in-house. So that's a bigger issue that we're facing here in our community, that we hope that candidates can also, make their campaign promise in immigration and complete it. What else was I gonna say? That it's just so much going on here that people do want to reunite with these children. They have the capacity to reunite them as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Tomas, let me ask you a question. So you referenced the Flores Agreement, and these children are supposed to be released within 20 days. They're supposed to be treated humanely. We're not seeing that happen right now. Is there something different about the fact that this is on federal land and it doesn't have to meet state guidelines for a state shelter? Is that right? Yeah. So this is a for-profit corporation on federal land that doesn't have to meet state of Florida standards.
Companies on the other side of the emergency center, so that's how they're getting away with going over the 20 days with
Because it's an emergency
influx shelter.
Okay.
But we know that they can reunite.
In reality, it's not an
and go
emergency
into
influx
different-
because
it's
you
not.
said some children have been here as long as 6 months.
Yes.
I'd seen 4 months, but 6 months is
11.
11.
And that's been because of interviews that the congresswomen have had and also lawyers that have been able to go inside. But it's because of that emergency influx shelter that they're going around with, and also because it's a military-based camp. The Florida State can't get in here. Florida State Department, the school board has been shut down to go
In fact,
inside.
there was in the news that surfaced a 7th sexual abuse allegation, and the Department of Children and Families can't get in there to investigate. There's no transparency, there's no accountability. The congresswoman from the district, Debbie Powell, has done an amazing job advocating for this issue and taking a stand against it. Even she has a hard time getting inside the center and getting transparency. She can't even get the hurricane preparedness plan from this center.
So I had a chance to talk to Congresswoman Powell this morning. She said she's been 5 times. She says it's costing us as taxpayers $775 a day to keep them locked up.
Per kid.
Talking about the conditions. This is wrong, and the only way we make it right is what you're doing right now. Holding vigil, testifying to your fellow Americans. Folks who are willing to travel, make the trip to be here. Make sure that we all know what's going on in our name right now. I think when Americans learn this, it'll shock the conscience of the country.
Can you speak a little louder? We can't hear you over here.
What? So someone was just suggesting that we walk over to. I'm going to follow your lead. And for members of the media, I want to be respectful of the activists and those who invited us to be here to make sure that I'm listening to and following them.
Were you going to make an attempt to get into the facility, Beto?
They're here in the community. They've been consistently advocating for these children. I want to make sure that I listen to them so I understand what's happening. And also want to take their guidance in terms of what they want us as a country to do. Very specific recommendations right now. Incredibly helpful. And the only way we're going to make this right is by listening to them. Bringing attention to it is there was reference made to Tornillo, which is another child shelter that was not following the standards of the Florida agreement. It was on federal property, so it didn't have to meet state standards for those kids. And by folks showing up, holding vigil, testifying to their fellow Americans, ultimately that shelter was closed down. But you still have the challenge with Homestead. You have others that are going to open up unless we keep this pressure up. There was
border crossings, Beto.
well, let's be respectful of Guadalupe. Let's not put the microphone in front of her face. Let's be respectful.
Háblanos por qué estás acá y tu política de inmigración. ¿Qué cambiaría bajo tu administración?
Pues necesitamos reunir cada familia que está en este momento separado. Necesitamos terminar la política de separar las familias, de detener los niños aquí en facilidades como Homestead. Y necesitamos una política de migración en que aceptamos la gente que están buscando asilo, tratamos a la gente con dignidad y respeto, que pueden quedar con sus familias y que podemos mejorar la calidad de vida de estos niños que están aquí en un momento muy importante y muy peligroso para ustedes. Atención que ya tenemos aquí en Homestead. Yo quiero y pienso cuando este país conoce qué está pasando en el nombre de los Estados Unidos con estos niños que están aquí, vamos a cambiar la política. Y vamos a cambiar el liderazgo que tenemos en el White House y también en el Congreso, porque queremos liderazgo y política que refleja los valores y los intereses. Si no los niños que están aquí, el tratamiento de los humanos depende en este país.
Hey John, go to the right. Everybody move to the right. Cameras, to the right. There's a big tractor. Look out behind you.
He's wrong. So our policy, one that follows legislation that goes says that no family, no child, no woman, no man who is seeking asylum or refuge in this country will be criminally prosecuted. It's not a criminal offense. But I also wanted to call our attention to the larger opportunity, which is human rights.
We're going to talk to press over here, guys.
Those who cannot come forward today, we were hearing Mariana about families who church, who aren't going out, who aren't able to live their lives because they worry about an ICE deportation or their families being broken up, that we allow them to come forward, register, get right with the government, be able to contribute even more to our shared success. Dreamers forever freed from any fear of deportation because we make them U.S. citizens, and we address the underlying issues in Guatemala and El Salvador and Honduras that would cause a family to flee in the first place. So I think when we address this comprehensively, when we have a safe and orderly process for families, especially children, to seek safety and shelter and refuge in our country, we're going to be living according to our values. We're going to be safer and stronger and more successful as a result.
What did you do in Tornillo? What did you do in Tornillo that you're going to do here?
So one of the things that I really like about what Congresswoman Powell is doing right now is she's leading in the House of Representatives to make sure that any federal funding tied to these facilities is conditioned on transparency, that you don't have to give the operators, the for-profit operators, 2 days notice or a week notice. You as a member of Congress can show up unannounced to ensure that there's true accountability and transparency for how these shelters are being run. It is the only way that we're truly going to know how these children are doing. Right now, there's no meaningful access. It's staged, it's managed, and it's effectively shut off from so many. So yes, let's follow Congresswoman Powell's lead on this. Let's make sure that we fund better conditions for these children, but let's also make sure that we don't give the administration a free pass to inflict this kind of cruelty and inhumanity on the most vulnerable among us.
What steps did you take in Tornillo, and how do you plan on taking them here in Homestead?
So in Tornillo, as soon as we learned that shelter was coming online, when we learned that the administration had implemented a zero tolerance policy where 100% of families apprehended in between ports of entry were being separated, kids placed in cages, parents very often remanded to the custody Department of Justice, then over to ICE, then deported back to their country of origin, separated without any knowledge of when they would be reunited. We all went, and there's somebody here who traveled great distance. I just saw Josh. We all went to Tornillo to make sure that the country understood what was happening. And within weeks of 1,000 people, within 24 hours notice coming together, you had the administration change that zero tolerance policy. It's still bad, it's just not as bad as it was then. And ultimately, you had that tent city in Tornillo shut down. There was community-wide, really countrywide pressure, not just on the administration, but on the administrator of that shelter. And ultimately, the administrator said, I'm not taking any more children because, and you heard this earlier, because Office of Refugee Resettlement, which oversees these shelters, was sharing sponsor information with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, which was leading to the deportation of households that could otherwise claim and sponsor one of these children and take care of them so that they're not locked up. So that public pressure, absolutely. So that public pressure really works. Ultimately, you've got to change the leadership, the majorities that you've got, the majority that you have in the Senate if the current majority is not going to listen and reflect American values. You got to change who's in the White House. You have to have somebody who understands
Mustafa, where is he happy?
kids, because so every day that this persists, I know
Dan, to your left. Okay, keep walking, and we'll follow you. Keep going, we'll just follow you.
But we're gonna have to block this.
Okay, just keep moving.
Sorry.
And I guarantee you it is not just going to be a stain on our country. It's going to change the character of who we are.
All right, we're going to jump up here. You can talk to everybody up here, Beto. Here we go.
I hope that everyone coming here draws attention on something that if most Americans knew what was going on would cause them to stand up to force the kind of change that we need right now. I just don't think most of America understands what's happening in our name the same way they didn't at Tornillo until folks like these were willing to bring attention to it. So good will come out of this, and part of the reason for my visit is to thank those who are making this happen right now so that America wakes up, and also to the degree that I can see these conditions, and then to be able to join with all of those who are going to make this change possible.
All right, Beto, we're going to go up and talk to folks right here. Come on up. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep going.
We are
the man of the people.
We're here. We're with these children here. We're with their families. I'm learning from Guadalupe and Mariana and Tomas and others the struggle for family members to see their children, the paperwork that they have to go through. Members of Congress denied the ability to visit and check on conditions for themselves, to know just how those kids are being treated. Reports of children who, when they turn 18, who've been here in U.S. custody for months or maybe years, are taken in shackles to be remanded to ICE and then deported back to a country that they fled from with their very lives. So I think all of these folks who are doing this work, who are showing up, are going to make sure that those families are reunited. That's my top priority, is to stop these practices, to reunify every family that has been separated, and to make sure